Welcome back to Real-ationship Goals, a podcast all about exploring the realities and complexities of healthy relationships. Real-ationship Goals is a project of the Prevention and Education team at the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support services or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Real-ationship Goals. We are your hosts. My name is Monica and I use they, she pronouns.
My name is Arianna and I use she, her pronouns.
And we are bringing you a special topics episode for you this time around. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So as usual, we have different things related to the month or the topic that we will be discussing. And I can start off just because I do have, well, I'll start off with the definition. So domestic violence is violent and or aggressive behavior within the home. And usually that is seen as married couples or like just dating couples, but that actually includes anyone in the home. So it could be family members or just like someone else living in the house. So I was looking it up earlier and even just roommates, like if there's violence between roommates, that is also domestic violence. But like I said, so often it's seen as just married couples or just couples in general. So I just wanted to kind of give that as we start talking. So did you want to go or I can go?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead, friend.
So, I focused on a law that was put in place that basically addressed Domestic Violence Awareness Month and just like established certain preventative approaches.
Yeah.
So the law that I focused on is FVPSA, which is AKA Family Violence Prevention and Services Act. Okay, so I got all this information from the Congress website.
Okay.
So it's official, y'all. So a little bit of history about this act. Throughout much of the 20th century, domestic violence remained a hidden problem. Survivors or victims were hesitant to seek help primarily because of fear of retaliation and concerns about leaving their communities. In the 1960s and 70s, shelters and services for survivors became more widely available. And in 1984, the Department of Justice issued a report that examined the scope and impact of domestic violence in the U.S. and recommended improvements in law enforcement and community responses to offenses that were previously considered family matters. As a result of efforts by advocates and the DOJ, Congress held series of hearings on domestic violence, and in response to that, the Family Violence Prevention Service Act was enacted as a part of 1984 amendments to the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act. While typically authorized with CAPTA, which is just AKA the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, FVPSA has twice been amended alongside the Violence Against Women Act, which stands for VAWA.
Oh, VAWA. I always say VOCA. I'm like, where did I get that from?
All these acronyms.
I know. I was like, you're doing really well because I would have been stuttering on all of them. Go ahead. Sorry.
Which was first enacted in 1994. So the Family Violence Prevention and Service Act and VAWA are the primary vehicles for federal support to prevent and respond to domestic violence. FVPSA is focused on prevention and services for survivors, while VAWA's focus is on both services for victims and the criminal justice response to domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and dating violence.
Mm-hmm.
Go to back. Some lots of information.
Yeah.
So the scope of the issue was the FVPSA primarily addresses domestic violence and dating violence, but both can include acts of physical, psychological, and sexual violence, as well as stalking. Domestic violence, sometimes referred to as Family violence can involve current or former spouses, individuals who share children in common, cohabitating partners, and etc., as Monica was sharing earlier. Because it's not always romantic partners, it
Yeah.
could be other relationships as well. But a little bit of overview, FVPSA supports temporary shelter and services for survivors as well as children exposed to domestic and teen dating violence. The law currently authorizes three major activities, which is domestic violence shelters, victim services, and program support. They also have the National Domestic Violence Hotline and the Domestic Violence Prevention Enhancement and Leadership through Alliances, which is the Delta program. And I have a bunch of stats on like the funding of like how
Oh,
each
okay.
program, how much money they got within the fiscal year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like shelters and services for the fiscal year of 2020, they got 220 million. And then 380.5 million in 21.
So it increased a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of like
Yeah, yeah,
fluctuated.
yeah. Sorry, I'm like looking at your notes.
And then they had Hotline, which the first year was 14 million, then 15 million, and then it increased. And then Delta, uh, 7.1 million, 5.5, 5.5, and then it also
It
had
went up.
fluctuated. But there was a significant amount of money given to each program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I can imagine that it fluctuates.
Mhm.
Um, because this is federal. You got it from
Yes,
Congress. Yeah,
it is
yeah.
the only federal funding
Yeah.
for domestic violence.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I mean,
Ye-
it fluctuates within administrations. Because then you got things from 2022, right?
Mhm.
So that was like peak COVID. So that probably impacted stuff too.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Because that
Yes.
kind of ties into my stuff too. Um, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like funding, but of course it goes back to domestic violence, but also expanding that definition. So as I was looking through things of like uh different aspects, different concepts during the awareness month, there's like I think the color for domestic violence awareness is like the color purple. And I think when I was reading it, I think it's the third Thursday that people wear it. And there's like things like that. But something that I was so interested about is the first Saturday of October is I don't know how you would say the acronym SAFT. I don't know. But it stands for Sheltering Animals and Families Together. So SAFT, SAFT.
Mm.
I think that's how you say it.
Mm.
So, what I thought was so interesting about this, and we were at a conference recently where I was really praising an organization in Houston because they partner with their animal shelters a lot. And I was just like, wow, that is like such an out of the box partnership. And they were like, yeah, we also partner with them to bring awareness on the impacts that domestic violence and whatnot, and just violence in general might have on pets too. And I was like, right, like, why did I not think of that? And so as I was looking at, on what I wanted to talk about today, I came across this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. Like it, not cute, like, oh my gosh, the pets are being impacted,
Mm.
along with the families um that are living with them. But I was just like, wow, like what a way to bring in all aspects of life almost like because people's pets hold such a big role in
Yeah.
their lives. So this program, I don't know when it necessarily like started. I think it might have been 2004, but it kind of was sparked in the late 1900s. So the founder of this program, her name is Allie Phillips, and she was working, it says she was a frontline assistant prosecuting attorney. So I don't know what all that means. But she had a case where it was a domestic violence case, and the survivor, or in this case, they use the word victim, walked out of the courtroom hand in hand with her with the defendant, which was her husband. So the husband was abusing her, but they walked out of the courtroom hand in hand because the wife wanted to keep her two dogs safe. It says her two dogs and a goat, which I was like, oh, that's so cute. And she chose to stay there in her abusive relationship after watching one of her dogs lose its life to violence. And so I got this straight off her website or the website for Saft. Um, so I don't know if the one of her dogs lost its life to violence from the husband, but it kind of put it into perspective for Allie Phillips of some people stay in abusive relationships for the sake of their animals, because if they leave, they can't take the animal, or they might the abuser might retaliate and hurt the animal and things of that sort. And so with that, she kind of started this idea of creating like guidelines for like shelters to help domestic violence shelters also house the animals too. And so that happened, and it says like after training criminal justice professionals on this since 2014. Oh, since 2004, excuse me. She launched the first and only global initiative to address this problem in 2008. So it's not 2004, it's 2008. And so it says at this time, only four family violence shelters in the US were known to house pets on site. And I just like, I never thought of that. And I think where my mind was going is so often in other work that I was doing, helping people kind of find housing, whether it's transitional housing, like maybe they will be homeless for a little bit, and things of that sort. I was having trouble finding places that would house like moms and children with the dad too, because so often it would be mom and kids only, like dad couldn't be there and things of that sort. But I didn't even think about the pet situation. And so on their website, they kind of have like a manual that has four housing styles, and they have pictures, and it's really interesting because they have them from California, Florida, I think Pennsylvania, if that's the acronym for Pennsylvania is PA, and then also Canada. And so like the first option is placing pets in the rooms with their family, and that's the California example, or the example in California, where in-room pets have a pet door with access to like their own kennel so they can go outside and things like that. Another option from Florida is creating an indoor kennel within the shelter. So it almost looks like you know the animal shelter here in Waco, you know how they have the cat room
Mm.
where it's kind of like all the cats are together. It's not like the dogs have their own. Anyways, it's kind of like that. That's what the picture looks like. Almost like the kennels at like PetSmart and Petco, where the cats are.
Oh.
And then creating an outdoor kennel. And I'm like, this one's in Pennsylvania. And that might be where it looks like the shelters where in the shelters where the dogs can go back and forth inside and out and they have their own little area. And then this one, the fourth option from Canada, it says keeping pets with families in transitional homes. So transitional homing, that looks a little bit different than a shelter, but being able to have their pets there with them. But all that to say, even from these examples, they've partnered with folks out in the US, Australia, Canada, England, Netherlands, and Spain. And like in the beginning, when she was starting this work, it said that there was only four shelters that were doing this, but now there's over 325 shelters that they have partnered with, because really SAF, or Sheltering Animals and Families Together, it's like a nonprofit educational organization. So they work with these shelters to kind of put these policies in order, or to implement them. And then on the first Saturday, when it's like National SAF Day, I hope I'm saying that right. I was looking at it, and they do things like all over the world, really. It's just like a day where people can create their own activities in their own neighborhood to kind of bring awareness, and also whether they want to fundraise. Like I saw some that were like wagon swim, so like they partner with the local water park, and like people can bring their dogs, but it also raises money for certain shelters and things of that sort, or just like a walk in the park, a day in the park, and things like that. But I just thought it was really sweet because I know my dogs mean so much to me. I care so much even about the random animals in my neighborhood that I don't know their names. I'm just like, wow, I love them. And I just thought it was really sweet because I think that can bring a lot of comfort to someone who's going through a situation like that. But yeah, so their mission is educating and assisting domestic violence shelters in creating on-site pet housing so as to reduce barriers to safety for families with pets fleeing abusive homes. And so yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I just thought it was really, really sweet, and I really my eyes were open from our colleagues out in Houston who partner with their animal shelter. But yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder if we have anything like that here in Waco.
Yeah. Oh, and so on their website, they have a whole directory
Mm.
of every single shelter that they know of that has that. And I don't think we have anything in Waco, but there was a bunch in Amarillo. I was trying to think of I was trying to remember which one was like the closest one to Waco. But I mean, Texas is big, so there's a lot of shelters out here. Because I think even on this, they said there's like over 1900 shelters in just this in the United States. And so our list was more than I expected. And I was really shocked that Amarillo had so many because I have some folks out in Amarillo that do a lot of organizing out there, and they say that we have like similar that Waco and Amarillo kind of have similar characteristics, traits as a cities. And so I was just like, if it's possible there, it could be possible here. Maybe they just never knew about it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, and I was gonna say, now we can move on to our relationship goal and
Um,
recommendation.
okay.
I guess I can think of a a relationship goal, which is really expand your idea of I want to say community, like genuinely community, but beings that are around us that we love and care for. Um, Recently I was at a conference, and it was the Green Communities Conference, and it's really a lot about environmental justice. So a lot of the sessions were rooted in our relationship to the earth. And so I know right now I was talking about animals, and that's included in like expanding that, but I was even thinking about like our earth because certain types of violence does impact the earth too. So just kind of thinking about our community and what that really means. And it doesn't always have to be, I would argue that the earth is living, but it doesn't always have to be a human.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that is my relationship goal. Do you have a recommendation?
Um, I would say visit your local
Animal?
yeah, animal
Oh my
shelter.
gosh.
Like, if you're an animal lover and you want to go visit some animals, I would recommend doing that.
I did that one time. I was talking to my husband, and we were not married yet. We were probably like early college days. I was like, I just think I want to go see some animals. And he was like, okay, are you sure? Like, are you gonna cry? And I was like, probably, but I just really want to see them. Um, and there's times where I'll look at him or I'm having a bad day and I'm like, what would make my day better right now is if I could pet a cat. And I'm just like, wow, it makes me think. And I think it can go with your recommendation, like our pet shelter, which is Pet Circle, they offer things like, oh, what is it called? They have like a sleepover option. So like you can take it's usually dogs. I don't know if cats will adjust to it well, but like the the dogs, because it's so loud with all the barking and the howling and everything, you can take dogs on like a play date all day, or you can do like a sleepover and things like that. I think it's called like Rover. I think the sleepovers are called like Rovers, and then like just a doggy date for the day. And like I love the idea, but then like you have to take him back. Oh,
Mm.
but it's like just to give him that break. So I think that's a really good, like if you're like me and you're like, man, I just need to pet an animal real quick and you don't have one, maybe that could be a good thing. But yeah, no, thank you. That's such a good recommendation. Well, yeah, that's all we have today, y'all. It's just the two of us. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you want to keep listening or and keep in touch with us, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Advocacy Waco. And then if you're looking for more prevention specific content, you can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. But until then, we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real-ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. Interested in more content from P&E or the Advocacy Center? You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention or on Instagram and Facebook at Advocacy Waco. Be sure to like this episode and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Bye.